On April 12th, the 2016 Neighborhood Council elections results were published. The winners in the category of employees independent contractors were Eric Previn with 61 votes, Patrice Berlin with 65 votes. There are two winners in that category. Coming in third but not winning was Lisa Sarkin with 52 votes. This was the final result. But yesterday, EmpowerLA, the organization that oversees the elections, nullified that vote, disqualified Eric Previn and Patrice Berlin, and reinstalled Lisa Sarkin. I'm making this video to present evidence of real malfeasance in engineering this change of vote, and it is remarkable. You'll have to be patient. It's some details, but here we go. First, it's very important to know that one of the main reasons Patrice and Eric ran is specifically to unseat Lisa Sarkin, who is the president, and many of her incumbent allies. They've been there for a long time. They got rid of term limits, and twice they've tried to recall Lisa Sarkin, but without success. She's regarded by many as a rubber stamp for developers and for Mr. Krikorian's office. But Patrice and Eric, with the rest of their team, succeeded, and they won the election fair and square. Now, Eric Previn is a watchdog who writes frequently for City Watch. He's critical of city council members. He was particularly critical of EmpowerLA during this election because of their disorganization and lack of establishing of a fair platform for candidates to run. There were a lot of emails. He was critical of them. He tried to get their help, but they didn't. There is a history here that has to be understood. Now, how did Eric and Patrice get unseated? Well, ostensibly it was because a challenge was filed by Stu Miller, and that went to a grievance panel, and the grievance panel agreed, and that makes it official. We're going to show that there was some behavior here that is truly appalling and illegal. First, we have to look at the rules about submitting a challenge. It's very specific. If you look, this is the home page of the elections. If you look at the election manual and you bring that up, it's very clear that one of the key requirements is to provide all supporting documentation. None will be accepted after the request is filed. Challenges without supporting documentation will automatically be rejected. Will automatically be rejected, and they have to be submitted at the time, and the filing has to be on time. In case that's not clear enough, we go to the specific area of challenges and press on that, and you come to this, where it says challenges must be submitted online. The form is available here. All supporting documentation for challenges must be submitted with the online form. We will not accept additional documentation after the filing deadline. Very clear. Then, if you decide you want to file a claim, you press here, and you're brought to the page. And again, you are told two things. One is all challenges must be received by the department no later than 5 calendar days after the election date, and the deadline is 5 p.m. And again, you are told all of your witness information and witness statement needs to be included at this time. The department will only accept and review witness information included at time of submission. And then here's a link to a specific witness form that has to be signed under penalty of perjury. So those rules are pretty clear. And most of the rules were rigorously applied. If you look here, there were 33 challenges, and that's what it says on their website. Every time it says IEA dismissed. Okay, IEA dismissed, and there's 9 occasions of that. That means that EmpowerLA applied one of their rules and disqualified an election challenge before it was deemed worthy to go to a grievance panel and be adjudicated. For some people, those rules were applied. Eric Previn himself, who wanted to submit a challenge, in an important email here between him and Grace Liu, who is the general manager of EmpowerLA and is a key figure in this. Eric asks on April 11th, 2016, I intend to file a challenge to the Studio City Neighborhood Council election, so please explain the conflicting protocols to avoid confusion. What is the current protocol and deadline? Grace Liu replies, too late, on April 13th, 2016 at 10:08 p.m. She says, "Hi Eric, hope all's well. The time to file an election challenge has passed for SCNC, that's Studio City Neighborhood Council." Now, that is accurate. The election deadline was April 12th, not April 13th. For Eric Previn, sorry, the rule applies. But it doesn't apply in the case of both Beth Schiffman, who was one of the challenges adjudicated. She filed a day late, and all of her witness statements were a day late, but that was okay. She was accepted. And then, most importantly, is the specific election challenge which succeeded in removing Patrice and Eric Previn. And that was filed by Stu Miller. If we look at Stu Miller's filing, Stu Miller is right here, okay? If we look at his filing, we now see that his filing was late also. It was after 5 p.m. Now, this is as of today, which is April 26, and EmpowerLA just made their announcement yesterday that Eric and Patrice were disqualified officially. Today, and this is very important, we have Stu Miller's original statement, and he cites witnesses. One of them is Mike Lewis, an LAPD officer who has since repudiated Stu Miller because he did not want to be a witness at all, and he didn't agree, and he was very mad to be included. What we see here is, we see, as is appropriate, witness information. Well, there's Jane Drucker, and there's her witness statement. And Heidi Holliker, and there's her witness statement. Uploaded just as you are supposed to do. Unfortunately, those at EmpowerLA who did this didn't realize that we were taking screenshots through the process. So these witness statements were added last night. And essentially what we have is one employee at EmpowerLA, going into the system to change it to make it fit their outcome. Because these witness statements were not submitted with Stu Miller's original, and the witness statements themselves were 1 to 2 days late. They were written after. Let's look at those screenshots very quickly. These are screenshots from, you can see, April 22nd. Here's Stu Miller's challenge. There's screenshot number 1. There's the first one. There he is. Now we go to the second one, and this is a continuation. It's exactly the same as we saw before, okay? And now you see witness. There are no witnesses written down, and there are no witness statements attached. Nothing. We go back down. He cites the same witnesses, and you can even see a key to the fraud. He admits that it was late. We have a clear rule. You must submit your documentation on time. He didn't, and they just last night put it in there. But it's much worse than that, because if you look at what they did put in recently, the real issue here is that did EmpowerLA, did Grace Liu and others help Stu Miller and others facilitate and even improve the challenge against Eric Previn and Patrice Berlin? Well, let's go back to Stu Miller's current, what's on the line. They've stuck the witness statements in there, okay? But they're getting caught now in another problem, because the 3 they list here do not match with the witness statements that were used at the actual grievance hearing. So they have left out one of the witness statements. We have an audio recording of that. In this brief clip from the hearing itself, Stu Miller, the complainant, states openly that he has no idea how many witness statements are going to be used. The rule is that you must have all of your documentation in at the time of submission. But in this case, they cut you a little slack. Your witness statements can be late, they can be moved around, switched. In fact, someone else will take care of it for you. And listen to Stu.
Plenty of witnesses. I named 5. Later discovered that apparently in this agenda that only 3 of them would be accepted. And we ended up getting 4, so I don't know which of the witness statements that I provided has been made part of the record. But let me just say this one more time.
So if it was difficult to hear, he said, I suggested 4, Then I heard that only 3 were going to be used, but on this agenda I see 4, but here we have 4. And then Jay Handel, who's in charge of elections, for some reason was the defender of Eric and Patrice, which makes no sense. And he has a lot of questions to answer too. He then proceeds to read witness statements. And the first one he reads is not here. So there was a 4th witness statement, as Stu said, that was read at the grievance hearing, but is not posted here, even though these were just posted last night. And they were never submitted on the proper time. So I guess EmpowerLA felt that it was okay to move witness statements around. Now, it gets even worse, okay, because this part is quite amazing. We have Jane Drucker. Here's her statement. She signed it on April 14th, which is 2 days after the deadline. Everything must be in by the 12th, but if you're against Eric Previn, then it's 2 days late is okay. She signs it under penalty of perjury, and she makes a statement. Now, in their collaboration, they got a little confused, and look what happens when we look at Mr. Kellum's witness statement. Oops. That was also signed by Jane Drucker. They overlooked this. They used Jane Drucker's exact form. Everything is identical except they changed the name and they changed the email, and then they stuck in a James Kellum comment, but they forgot to have him sign it. And so there it is again. So I guess they did a bit of a cut and paste, or they were in a rush and they were all working together. And these statements should have been on the website, being untouched if they were valid. But instead they're being manipulated, put in late. This one is on the 14th. Cutting a lot of slack here, cutting a lot of slack. Finally, it's also worth noting that other people's files have been changed. Witness statements were removed. This happened 2 nights ago. You could see it in real time. Leela Chasen, who I've spoken to and is very upset that she hasn't heard back from her challenge, her original statements included her witness statements, but somebody copied her and we can see who it was. Let's take a look. This is her old one. This is the original one, submitted April 14th, and that was the one she submitted. But since that time, someone took it upon themselves to copy it, create a new one on April 22nd, several weeks later. This was by Paramazian Sevak, who works for Stephen Box. He's the systems administrator at EmpowerLA. So he felt it was appropriate to go in, change the date, and then remove all of her witness statements. Why would you do that? Well, maybe to forestall the argument against Stu, because we said, you could say he doesn't have witness statements. Well, if she does have witness statements, that makes him look bad. So if you take hers out, maybe that makes him look better. But they went with a more bold plan, which is just to stick the witness statements in. Our understanding is that this is against the law. A city employee, Grace Liu and perhaps others, using the power of their office to create a private advantage or disadvantage to another person. And in this case, the private advantage was to Lisa Sarkin, the incumbent, and the private disadvantage was to Eric Previn, the one who was legitimately elected, and Patrice Berlin as well. So they have to answer some questions about these witness statements. Did Stu send them in? Who emailed them to the grievance panel judges? Who are the people to answer the questions about EmpowerLA's role in this election? Well, if we go to the department site, they have a list of their people, and you'll see the people in charge are Grace Liu, the general manager, Jay Handel, the neighborhood council elections administrator. Grace is the number 1, and she's the one who emailed Eric Previn saying, sorry, the deadline's passed, the day after the deadline at 10 p.m. But then one of Eric Previn's challengers was allowed to submit her stuff at 11:30 p.m. that very same day. Also, people that might be worth talking to are Sevak Paramazian, because he's the one who went in and changed some of the website, removed witness statements. Tom Sung also went in there and did some changes. and the first changes were also done by Irene Abadian. I want to close with a brief audio clip of a neighborhood council meeting at which Lisa Sarkin, remember the person who's now been put back into office by this successful challenge against Eric Previn and Patrice Berlin. She is presiding at a neighborhood council meeting in Studio City, and Eric Previn is making a general public comment. And the interaction is important because it really encapsulates the dynamic here. Eric Previn is a vocal and effective watchdog and critic of all kinds of monkey business going on in City Hall. And one of the tactics that's been used against him, he's kind of a big guy, is to say, oh, he's scary. I'm afraid of him. He's aggressive. It's a ridiculous idea, and those who know Eric, it's absurd. But in this audio clip, you'll hear that technique trying to be used and being unmasked for what it really is.
Collective inaction to not do what the public, as Ms. DeHaan Davis, who for the record is the citywide election coordinator, or was until she stepped down about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and now will be paid by all of the neighborhood councils who use election
Okay, that doesn't
work.
have anything
That
to
has
do
exactly
with
to do with general public comment. Thank you for your interest in local government, ma'am. Do not interrupt the speakers, thank you. I'm trying to point out that in
Don't
fact...
speak to me like that again,
Okay.
or you will be removed. This is your second.
You need to restore the time. She's
Second.
allowed to interrupt people. It's not okay. Okay. So put the time back on the
She's not
clock and I will
putting the
continue.
time back on. You'll
Ma'am,
have
you
more
have
time
a
after
problem.
it turns
Okay,
to
you have a
you.
serious problem. And
No,
I'll explain
I
it.
don't.
I'll explain it. You were noticed in writing numerous times
Would you
for
please remove him?
No.
Oh, thank you.
It's really too bad that Mr. Previn doesn't stay on the point and that he insults everyone on this board constantly. There's only so much that anybody should have to take.
I'm in the middle of my public
Madam President.
This is a lawyer.
So what?
Madam President.
You can't have totality.
I'm trying to recognize you, but he's still talking.
I'm in the middle
Lisa, let's just let him finish this.
So I would ask you... No.
All
Ms.
right,
Sarkin,
this is the last warning. Go ahead and stay on point, please.
I am on...
Without insulting people, which is what you
You keep
started to do.
interrupting people and that is
You'll
not
get your
tolerable.
time.
Madam President, let's take a deep breath. Eric, I've known Eric a long time, I've known everyone on the board for long enough time. Let's all just take a deep breath and let Eric finish without interruption. He's got 2 minutes. We cannot censor people on the basis of what they're saying. This is a general comment. So I would suggest that...
Just so you all know, we have a code of conduct here that everyone
I have
needs.
not yielded the floor to you, so I would suggest that Eric be able to speak, finish, and we can move on to the meeting. So, thank you.